Hello and welcome to this tutorial. So I'm going to teach you how to create a sign up and login system that has security to prevent hacking. Alright, so to begin with, I must mention that there is no such thing as absolute security. So every security system is only as good as its weakest point. So as much as you can put a lot of security on your website, if somebody gets your password, for example, then all that security will do nothing. So keep in mind that these are simply basic precautions you have to take for your website to make sure that at least it has a minimum amount of security. Okay, so to begin with, we're going to be using PHP. So I am using XAMPP as my server. So you must have a server of some kind for you to be able to run this. So make sure you have XAMPP or WAMP or whatever it is running, and start Apache and start MySQL, because we're going to need to create a database as well. All right, so once we have that out of the way, we can go to our htdocs folder. This in my case is drive C, XAMPP, htdocs, and this is where I put all my websites. For your particular server, if it's different to this, that might be different. So just find the public HTML folder and create a folder in there. So we're going to name it login for simplicity, and then I'm going to open that folder. But what I will do, since I'm using Sublime Text as my text editor, I must mention that you can use any text editor. I can simply go to view, sidebar, and show open files, so that I can drag and drop my folder from here onto my text editor. This way it's easier to create files in here. Okay, so the first thing we must do is to look at the list of security features we are going to look at here. So I've written these down here. So the first thing is we're going to look at how to structure your folders so that you have better security. The second thing is you need double validation. Then there's whitelisting, sanitizing your input, and using prepared statements. And then you must give vague error messages, and then or disable all production error messages. And then we're going to see how to use cross-site request forgery tokens to avoid getting hacked this way. And we're going to look at HTML escaping to avoid being hacked using JavaScript. Okay, so this is the basic stuff you need to know in order to create a website to have at least some basic security. Okay, so in the other tutorials, I don't usually cover all of this because it would make the videos quite long. So this is why I decided to do a specific video for web security, then I can reference it in other videos. All right, so let's get started here. Now, to begin with, we look at the folder structure. Now, the thing is, if your folder is on the internet, it's obviously accessible to anybody that has internet. So let's see this in action. So if I go to my login folder, and let me create a new folder in here, and I'm going to call this one public, just so we can have a folder to look at. Okay, so if I go to my website, my browser here, I'm going to type localhost and /login is our folder /public, because we created a folder in there. Okay, so if you can see here, the public folder is visible. Now, if I have a file in my public folder here, so let me create just a new text document here. Okay, so if I'm on the internet like this, somebody can easily browse these files. Okay, so any folder you have on the internet will be accessible to anybody who can simply go to that navigation. So for example, the images folder, somebody can easily go to your website, right click and say inspect or view image info, and then he'll get the path to that image, and then they can simply open that folder to see other images that you didn't want them to see, and so on. So that is a risk to your security. So the first thing you must do to get rid of this situation where somebody can see your content, remember that every PHP website, the server looks for an index or home page in that folder. So in this case, the reason we're having this index of is because our folder doesn't have an index or home page. So instead, it just shows you the index of that folder. So to destroy that issue, what we will do is, let me delete this file. Let's go back to our, right in the public folder, I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to save this as index.php. Okay, so I'm going to save it in there. Now, if I go back this time and refresh, you see that I get an empty page instead, and that's because the index.php page was found and therefore it was loaded. So this is one way to avoid people snooping around in your folders. You can simply put an index.php page that is empty in each and every folder. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Now, the second thing to do is to separate your folders, your important files and the public files. So any CSS, any images and so on will be in your public folder. However, all the important files like functions and so on will make a new folder and call this one private. Okay, now the reason we're doing this is because you will set, well, once on the internet, you're going to set this public folder as the default folder that somebody lands on when they go to your website. So let's say it's www.facebook.com. Once you open that, this is the folder that's going to be accessed, this one right here. So it's not possible for somebody to go a folder out of this folder, because when they type your URL, regardless what page they're accessing, they are going inside this folder. So they cannot go out of this folder to the private page. That's just not possible. So this adds an extra layer of security. But sometimes, you know, people are hackers and they might manage to get to you somehow. So let's see a situation where they do manage to get to you. So let's change this public to private, like this. So again, we have this issue of the index of being shown in the private, right? So if for some reason they get here, what you could do as well inside the private folder, you can put an index.php page that is empty as well to protect yourself. Now there's another option you can do, and that is to create an Htaccess file. So let's go in private, right click and create a new file. And when we're going to save, we're going to write something like options, capital O, options, like this. And then let's put a minus sign and say indexes, like so. And then let's save this as .htaccess. Don't put a file name, just .htaccess. And then this is all we need for this file. So I'm going to close it. Now let's come back here and try to open this. And when I refresh now, it's going to tell me that access is forbidden. So this will be forbidden for all the subfolders in this folder right here. So this is one way to make sure that somebody cannot access this folder. This is a more robust way of doing it. Okay, so all your important files like functions will be in here. So let's go ahead and create a few files inside private. So we're going to need 2 files. So new file, we'll put our PHP tags here. This one will be the connection, connection.php. Actually, what we're going to name it is database.php. This will connect to your database. So let's save that. So make sure all the files with important information, save them as .php, because by default, the server is going to process PHP files before sending them to the user. So you can hide important information that way. So the second file we're going to create will be for the functions. So let me put my PHP tags there, save. Functions.php. Great. So even if you're just simply saving text data in these files, you have to put them in PHP tags. That way, nobody can, if they try to access those files, it will be a bit harder to do so. All right, so now that we have that, we can go back to our index page in the public folder, and in here, let's put our PHP tags as well, like so. And then we can begin creating an actual website with the login and sign up. Okay, so this takes care of the folder structure right there. You can have a more robust folder structure, but this is the general idea. So in order to look at double validation, let's actually create a login and sign up page so that we can see that in action. So the first thing we're going to do here is include our files here, because these files in private are required to run our website. So what we will do is just say require, like that. So because we are going outside the folder, we're going to put // that's how you go outside the folder, and say private, that's the folder there, and then our first file is database.php. Okay, so I will duplicate this, and then I'm going to say functions this time, so I can include the functions file as well. Now this is all fine, it can work just fine. The only problem is if you have many files, let's say you have 100 files on your website, and each one includes a list of files at the top, because you must put these files on every website file. Now the problem is comes in when you want to add an extra file here. It means you have to go through all 100 of your files, of your pages, and add that new file. So to avoid this problem, I'm just going to copy this, go to private, the private folder, create a new file in here, put some PHP tags, and then I'm going to require these files in here. So save this as autoload.php. So these are just names you can give these files. But the advantage of doing this is that now in the index page, I only need to require one file, which is the autoload. And then the autoload is going to include the rest of the files. So this way, if I want to add one file to the website, I can simply add it in autoload, and automatically to be added to every file on the website that contains the autoload file there. So that's how you become more efficient. Okay, so at this point we can close off the tag like this, and let me go back here and let's go to public now, so we can access the index page. So no errors here, it means everything went well. So let's add our HTML tags here, and the only thing, let me give it a title of home. The only thing I'm going to say here is this is the home page. Refresh, and there we go. So that's the home page right there, which means everything is working fine. Okay, so now this actually completes the folder structure section, and now we must do double validation there. So to do this, I must create a sign up and login page. So let's begin with a sign up page. Let me close this autoload. So we're going to create a new file in the public folder, new file. So this one we're going to name signup.php. Okay, so let's create a very simple form here. So I'm going to close off the PHP tags there, and I'm just going to start my HTML tags, and this one is sign up. Okay, so let me create a simple form here. I must make sure to add a method which is post, like so. Okay, in there I'm going to add a div which will have the title of sign up. All right, then below that I'm going to add several inputs. I'll put input of type text with a name, username, and then there will be a password there, and then another input, a third input for submit button. Submit, we won't put a name here, we'll put a value instead, and this one is what will show up which is sign up, and this one will be actually, let's try email and password. Great, something like this. All right, so now the important thing with security is, first of all, if you have an email section, it's better to this is the first section for the validation, because it's double validation. This is the front end. So here, make sure you write email. You give it a type of email. That way it will make sure that the user is entering an email. And then here, make sure you put password so that it can hide the text of the user. And then the next thing is you can put these inputs as required. So just put required there. I don't need to do that, just that required is enough, and required here as well. Let me remove the word wrap. Okay, so that's the code right there. So now what this required does is, first of all, if I refresh my home page, okay, let's go to the login page. So at the end we'll say slash, this is actually the sign up page, slash signup.php. Okay, so this is what we get. Now the required section makes sure that if I click sign up, it will highlight these boxes to make sure, tell me to fill in these fields. So let me fill in this field right here, and you see it's telling me please enter an email address, because it knows this is not an email address, and in the password I get that. So this is awesome. This is the first layer of validation here. Now let's go here and put some styles. So I'm going to put some styles here so that these guys can look much better. So first of all, let me put some break tags on these, and I'm going to put another break tag there. I'll actually put 2 here so that there's more space. Okay, so let's style the form. So I'm going to style the form. I'm just going to say form, open close bracket. I want it to be in the center, so I'll say margin auto, and I'm going to put a border solid thin so we can see it, AAA, gray color there, and I'll put a padding of 6 pixels. Okay, and then I'm going to, that's probably it. And then there's this div right here, so I can give it an ID of title, like so that I can style it as well, and just say title, and I'm going to say background color, so I'll just give it a random background color here. I'll say padding 1M, and then I'm going to say text align center. Oh, where did I go? Text align center. Okay, that's pretty good. And then let me style the body as well, even though this is inside the body. So what I could do is just put a style there, or I could move the styles above the body. And here I'm just going to add a font family so that we have a better font. Rodana, you can put whatever you want there, whatever font you like. And now I can style the inputs. So what I will do with these inputs, I'm going to give them an ID of text box, so I can style them together without styling this. So I'm going to put text box over here, and we will say, first of all, the border solid, thin, AAA, that's a gray color, and let's give them a margin so they can be separate from each other of maybe 4 pixels. That should do. Okay, and then a width of, say, 98%. Okay, save that. So here we are, and let's refresh. Okay, so this is what we get. Not very nice, so let's go back and change a few things. For starters, I don't want how it's filling the whole page, so I can easily rectify that by saying max width should be 200 pixels, like so. Yeah, something like this. And then these guys are going a little bit overboard here, so let me come back here. Text box, so I would just say margin top, so that only the margin at the top is affected. Let me put 6 pixels there. Let's see if that changes anything. Okay, there we go. So that looks much better. And now I can easily right click on this thing and it say inspect element, and then I'll see my blue color over there. Just grab that, and actually before I do this, let's go to the title. Let me give it a color so I can change the text color as well. So I'll give it a color of white like this, and then I'll refresh. So then I can change my blue color there to any color that I want in the spectrum here, something like this, or whatever it is. Then I'll copy this color and put it right there, replace that blue. Okay, so for demonstrative purposes, this is good enough. Right, so here, please enter a valid email. Great. So this is the first layer of validation, right? So now let's actually post something so that we can see what's going on. So we're going to post to the same exact page, right? So everything we post will come to this PHP section. So in order to be able to use our functions, we're going to get this require file and bring it on the signup.php and simply paste it there like so. Okay, so that's great. And now what I want to see is when somebody posts something, I'm going to come here and use the server to check if something was posted, so that we only process information when something was posted. So we're going to say $_server, because that's the server variable which contains a method. It will contain the post method if somebody actually posted something, because we have the post method right here. So if server request method _method, if that is equal to post, like so, it means somebody actually posted something. Okay, so once we get to there, something was posted. So we can just show what's inside the post. So here I'm just going to say print readable, which is print r, post. So we just want to see what was posted, like that. So let me add an actual email address, and then I'll add a password 1234 and hit that button. So as you can see now, we have the email there and the password in this array. So everything seems fine. Now, so we've taken, as you can see, this is double validation. So the first part passes. Now, the problem the first part is an issue is because somebody can easily go to your page, right click here and say view page source, and then they can copy this, create their own version of this form, and then they can change these from email to something else and actually send you the wrong data. This is why you must now check again at the top here to ensure that you have the correct data before you send it to your database. Okay, so we're going to do that just now. So let's go up here. This brings us to our other point here, which is whitelisting using regular expressions. So what exactly is whitelisting? There's two types of listing. There's blacklisting and then there's whitelisting. So for example, let me if for example I need an email from or let's say in password, for example, in password I just want words in here. I don't want numbers, or let's say I want a password with numbers only, no letters or symbols or anything like that. So what I will do, instead of looking for all the things that I forbid from this section, I'm going to look for the thing that I'm actually looking for. So for example, if I only want numbers in this password, I could say something like if it's a number, for example, if is numeric, something like this. So this is whitelisting because I'm looking for a specific password, which is a number, okay, as opposed to instead of going around and saying make sure that it's not a letter, or it doesn't have this symbol, or it doesn't have that. So instead of looking at what it doesn't have that it should, just look for what it actually has. So if I want a number, I should just check, is it a number or not? Instead of saying, is it a letter? Then don't accept it. Is it an email? Then don't accept it. The reason is that blacklisting, or the things that you've blacklisted, can be more than what you need to whitelist. And as a result, you can't think of everything that the user can actually type in here. Users are very clever sometimes. They'll type, maybe you didn't account for the % symbol, and somebody will put a % symbol there, and you won't know, your software won't know what to do with it. But if you're looking for a number, it doesn't matter what they type in here. As long as it's not a number, it's going to be rejected. So that is whitelisting. So look for a specific thing, give a specific criteria of what you want in your inputs, and then just check if it's that. If it's not, reject it. So that is whitelisting. Okay, so let's see how we can go about doing that. So for example, we are looking for an email here. So we want to see if this is an email or not. That's what we want to look for. Now I'm going to give you a quick crash course on regular expressions and how to check for simple things like that. So it turns out that Sublime Text actually checks for regular expressions when you are searching for stuff in your code. So let me save this for a bit, and then we're going to go down here at the corner here, and then we're going to click here where there's a star and a dot. That's regular expression. So once you click that, you enable searching by regular expression. So for example, regular expressions are very good at searching for things. So let's say, for example, I'm looking for the head tag here. Now, normally without regular expressions, I might just type something like this, HTML, like that. Okay, so well and good, it's going to find that tag, right? But what if I'm looking for any tag whatsoever in this page? So any tag will do, the head tag, the HTML tag. How do I select all of those? Now you can't use normal searches to find such a thing. You need to use regular expressions. So in order to do that, you have to create like these brackets like that. So these brackets will determine what is optional to search for. So first of all, we all know that these guys have this and that, or tags have that. So we'll put those outside. So I'm going to put this closing tag here and that one there. Okay, great. So now we want to look for any text inside, in between these two. So to find any word in there, I'm just going to say A to Z like that. So once I say A to Z, it's going to look for everything that has this symbol and any letters in there, and then this closing bracket. However, this only means one letter, right? So if I had, for example, I had a tag like an A tag like this, you see that this A tag is selected. Okay, it's selected there, which means it's been found. So if I put another one like a B tag here, that will be accepted as well, because I'm looking for just a single one. Now, if I want to look for more than one, I'm going to put a plus here, like so. So as you can see now, this is also selected now. HTML, head is selected, title is selected, B is selected. So you can see the power of regular expressions. I can select multiple things here. If I want to find all the closing tags, for example, I'd simply put that there. And now I'm looking for all closing tags. So as you can see, that tag, and so on. So how exactly does this work? So the regular expressions are quite simple. What this means here is if you put these brackets, you're telling it you want to put a criteria of what to find. Anything that is outside this means it's a literal string, so it should be found as it is, like that. Okay, so you can put A to Z, and then you can put capital A to Z, or you can put because right now if I put a number in this title, for example, let me put a number here, it won't be selected anymore because it doesn't match this criteria. It's none of these words here. So what I could do is put 0 to 9, and then you see now it's selected, which means I'm including numbers as well. So you can include as many symbols as you want. If I put a dot now here, for example, oops, sorry there. If I put a dot here, this breaks unless I put the dot as part of the criteria, and so on. So regular expressions are very powerful. So it's a good idea to actually learn the basics of these regular expressions until you find something that you are looking for. Now, for us to deal with the email, this is what we're going to do. So a good way is to go and Google what regular expressions do what. So, and then you can test them in Sublime Text right here. So for example, let's look at our email there and say at yahoo.com, right? So this is what we want to check for. So I'll put it in quotes like that. So we can generate a regular expression until we see it selected completely. So to start with, I can say confidently, any email will contain words here, right? Letters and numbers sometimes, and sometimes symbols, right? So we're going to use something like wait a minute here. We're going to do that, and then okay, so this is finding individual letters here. So a letter there, a letter there, a letter there, and so on, except these symbols are not included. So letter, letter, letter. So let's look at numbers if they're included in there, and so numbers are included. So this is a good way to do that. And sometimes I've put this because sometimes an email address will have a hyphen like that, so we are including that as well. So these are the characters of the keyboard here. And then we're going to put a plus so that we don't select just one there. We're going to say plus like so. So now you can see it's selecting all the words here. One word there, and so on. But not selecting these symbols here, which is great. All right. So then we're going to put an @ symbol there, which eliminates everything else. But then we'll repeat this here. Let me copy this. So an email address is a word here, @ symbol, another word, the dot symbol, and then another word. Yeah, I think that's about it. So this is how the email looks like. Now, to make sure that we just get what's at the beginning and at the end, we can put a this what do you call this? This caret sign on top of number 6, like so. So from the beginning, it should have this, and up to the end, we put a $sign like that. Okay. So this is how you check for your email address, and we can use this in PHP. So let me come here and say, first of all, let's get the variables from here. So what we would do is say email is equal to post, okay, email, like that. And then password is equal to same thing, oops, post password, like that. So we have our email, we have our password. Now the only thing we have to do is preg match this to make sure that it actually fits. And so at the top here, I'm going to create a variable called error, so that in case we have an error, we can just put that error in there and display it later. So I'll do that. So now here I'm going to say preg match. So let me give some space here. I'm going to say preg match. This is how you match using a regular expression. So we're going to put our pattern in there. So that's a pattern we created there. So to do that, I will put quotes like so, and then I will put slashes like that, and then I'll put my pattern in there like this. Okay, hopefully that's correct. And the subject is the email. So let me come here and put that subject there. So we're checking if preg match. So if this is correct, if the email is an actual email, we're going to get a true, but if not, we're going to get false. So I'm just going to look for a false here by doing that and put the closing there like so. So if preg not preg match this, then we're going to have an error. So I'm going to put the error there and say, please enter a valid email like so. And then what we will do is, of course, this part has to be removed. We're going to come here so that we can echo out our error just underneath the form here. So just below the title. So at this point, I'm going to add a div like this. And I'm going to put some PHP tags here. And I'm going to check for, I'm going to close them there. So what I will check for is whether there's an error or not. So say if, first of all, let's check if it is set. Sorry, there is set. If it's set, error, because sometimes we may forget to set it. And we say and error is not empty, like that. So if it is set and it's not empty, then let's echo what's in there. As simple as that. Okay, great. We're doing great so far. So let me refresh this and it's going to ask me to resend the data. Oh, great. Let me resend the data. So I don't see any errors here. So it means things must have gone well. This is way too big, this 1M. Let me put it at 0.5. All right, so let's intentionally add a wrong email here. So let me put, let's remove the @ symbol, something like this, and then hit sign up. So of course we'll get this here. So let's disable it for a second and just put text here so that we can see the other system in action. So let's do that, remove the @ symbol. So that's no longer an email, then sign up. Okay, it needs a password. Great, sign up, don't save. So it's, you see the error, please enter a valid email, because the email did not match our preg match here, which is great. Okay, so that sorts out that problem. So now we can come to here, whitelisting we've done with regular expressions. Now we can come to sanitizing and escaping inputs for the DB. Okay, so at this point we have our password and we have our email. Now there are times if you're, for example, you are getting somebody's name, okay, let's say you have a name field here. So somebody could write a name like John's mom. Okay, so this person is not really trying to hack your system, but however, this apostrophe here is going to cause a problem because it actually means something in the database. So let's see how that can actually have an effect by testing it out. Okay, so we're going to forget about, actually what we will do is just add a name field here. So I'll put email back here. Great. Type email, type text, and then here I'm going to say username, something like this. Okay, then come up here and also get the name here, password, name. Oh, it's what, username? Great. So for the username as well, we can do another preg match, okay, to eliminate those issues, for example. So now, if you're not going to use the preg match and you have a name like John's mom here, this is not going to go into our database very well. So in order for us to see that, let's create an actual database. So I'll go to the tab here and I'm going to go to localhost. PHP my admin. So that's the localhost PHP my admin. Okay, everything there seems fine. So let's wait for it to load. There we go. So let's create a database here so that we can have something to work with. So I'm just going to say login_db, just so we can have a database to work with. Let me zoom out here. And let's create a table called users. Let's go here. All right, so the first thing we need is an ID there. And then we're going to have, I think instead of a user ID, let's use something longer, like a URL address, probably something like that. This can be anything really. Username, and then we're going to have our password, and then let me add one more column here. Username, password, and email. And of course we may need to add a date. So date, great. So here in the ID, I like to use big int. On the URL address, I'm going to use variable character with, this is up to you. I'll just use 60, that's good enough. Then the username variable character, maybe we can say 20 characters there that are required. The password is also 64 because we're going to be hashing this. And then email 100 variable character, and then the date will be date time. And then just make sure that the ID has auto increment on and a primary index. And so once we do that, we can hit save. Okay, great. Now we can put an index for the URL address because that's the identifier for the user. And the username, we're going to need that when logging in, just like the email. If you're not going to be searching for a field, no need to give it a an index, just like password. We will never search for the password, and so on. Okay, so this is good enough. So let's try and save some data in the database. So to do that, we're going to go to our, so as you can see here, there's a post username and post password. We're only checking for the email for now, so let's leave that as it is. And then let's come down here and actually try to save into the database. Okay, so to save into the DB is quite simple. Let me go to database.php so I can add my values there. So I'm going to create some variables here. So I'll use the define function. Now this one creates constants because these things are not going to change throughout the working of this script, so we might as well make them constants. So here I'm going to say db, let's use capital letters like this, db name. What would be the name of our database? So here it's login_db, that's what we named it. Then let's put a semicolon, and then let's copy this a couple of times. So here I'm going to say db the user, and of course we're going to have the password, and then we need the, okay, we have the db name of the user, the password, and we have, you could add the host if you want, and what else? So we have the db name, the user, the password, the host. I think that's about it. So these are the constants that we're going to have in db.php. So since we've created these, we can use them anywhere. So our username is root. So if you have a different username, you can put that one there. We don't have a password. And our host is localhost, like this. So down here, we can create an actual database connection. So let's going to say connection is equal to MySQLi connect, like so. That's how we connect. So here we're going to give our we're going to give these constants here. So let me start with this one. So we'll give the db host, and then we're going to give the db user. I hope this is the correct order because sometimes I get these wrong. And then we're going to get the password, and then we are going to put the DB name. So the DB name is at the end because sometimes you can omit it and the things will still work. Okay, so we'll put an if statement here to tell us if things went well or not. So we're going to say if not, we just want to echo an error if this didn't work out. Then we're going to say die with a message, failed to connect, like so. Okay, so since this file is already included in our project, if we just refresh the page, we should see errors if there are some errors. Okay, so unidentified index username. Okay, that's because we hadn't refreshed that. So let me just refresh it as it is. So since we are not seeing any error, it means the connection actually went through. So this is great. Now we have a connection to use. So now I can come to my sign up page here since we have the file included there, so we can use that connection. So I'm going to say result, or let's create a query first of all. So the query is going to be simple enough to insert something in here. So we're going to say insert into users, that's the table, open bracket and close, values, open and close bracket. So I usually get this wrong because values doesn't look like this. Right, so there we go. So what values do we want to put here? So if we go to our users table here, we have date, we have email. So what we need to put is the URL address, the username, the password, and the email. Okay, so we have those. So let me start by writing them here. I'll say URL underscore address, comma. Let's move you over here. Username, password, and what's this, email, and date. Okay, so those are the main ones. So I'm going to copy these. Copy, because the order is important. I will paste them here and convert these guys into variables by putting the $sign at the beginning and move a step back, put an inverted comma, then put another inverted comma at the end, because these are strings, so it should be like this. Great, this is going well. And so for the moment of truth, we're just going to say my SQLi query. So we are running that query now, and we don't need to return a result here. So we're just going to say connection and then slash the query itself, like that. So that's how you run a query. Okay, so at this point we are getting a user supplied data, which is always unsafe. So you should always assume that the user is a hacker or a malicious user who's trying to hack your system. That way you can be well prepared for your input. But for argument's sake, we are simply sanitizing the email, but not the username or the password, so that we can see a few issues here if we don't do that. So let's try with something legitimate and see if it's going to actually work out. So we have nothing in our DB. So let me come back here and let me create a username here. Let me put my email address and let me put a password and let me hit sign up. Okay, so now we have a problem here, undefined variable URL address and date. So, but I'm sure it must have saved something. Oh no, it did not. So that's great. So we didn't create these variables. So let's do that now. Let's start with the date, which is much easier. So let me copy the date here. So I'm going to come here and paste it there. Wait, like that. Date is equal to, let's use the date function like this. YMD, capital H, I, S, like so. Okay, now that we're done with the date, let's create our URL address like so. URL address is equal to, so we're going to create a function that will generate this URL address. So I'm going to call this function get, it's going to be a random string. So let's just say get random string, that's more descriptive. And then we're going to supply a length that we will be the maximum. So I'll put 60 there because in the columns there, when structuring this, we set this to contain at least 60 characters, so it can handle that. But 60 will just be the maximum. It can be shorter or longer. All right, so to finish up, let's get this function and let's create this function. So copy this. I will go to functions.php and we can create our first function in here, get random string with a length there of some kind, and then let's do that. Now the function here involves typing a lot, so I'm just going to copy what I already have here, and that should be enough. I'll just explain what this is. Let's remove the word wrap and let's come back here and push this in there. Okay, so this is our function. So our function starts with an array. So this is an array of all the possible values that I want in this random string. So if, for example, I want symbols and such, I can put them there. Just add more locations to this array. So this one in particular contains all the numbers and all the small letters and then all the capital letters, and that's it. So there's about 61 items in here. So if you add more, you have to change this number to suit the number of items there. So we start off with an empty text, and then we look at the length that was supplied. So in our case, the length is 60. So we're going to say get a random number. This is how you get a random number, rand between 4, because we don't want it to be less than 4 characters. So between 4 and whatever maximum number was given, which is that one. So this length is different to this one, so let me just make sure it's the same spelling. Great. So now whatever number we get in here is a random number. That will be the actual length of our string. So it could be something like 20, for example. So if we get 20, we're going to loop through this section 20 times because we're using that here. So this is going to go 20 times around, and each time it's going around, it's going to select a random character from this array, okay, between 0 and 61, which is this array right there. It's just going to generate a random number between these two, and then we're going to get that number from the array, whatever number comes out, which is this random here. So let's say it gets number 2, so that will be 0, 1, 2. So we'll get this 2 and add it to text, which is currently empty, so that it will start with 2 and so on and so forth. So you get all these numbers, a random number here. So we're going to see it in action, and then we return the final text here. So that's our simple function there. So it's get random string. So let's go back here. So now we have our date, we have our random string right there. So this is great. So now let's try and log in, which should work this time. So if I refresh the page, I should get no errors this time. Okay, so I get no errors. It means we actually managed to sign up. But of course, we are not seeing anything there. That's because our query did not go very well, it seems. So a good way to figure out what is wrong with your query is to actually echo the query before you actually run it. So I'm going to say echo right here just after I create the query and say there, echo query. So I'll refresh again, boom, and there's the query. So we run that, comes here, values, insert into users. So here is the random string that was generated, boom. And then we have our username, we have our password, and we have our email, and then we have our date. So everything seems fine, but in case you're wondering what the problem is, we can easily just go to we copy this query, go to our table and go to SQL, and right here we paste it and then try to run it. So already I can see that there's an error here. It's telling me ending quote was expected near the closing side. So there is an ending quote that isn't there. So this is our error here. So let's see where we are missing a quote. So the error says was expected, ending quote was expected near. So after near, there's a closing bracket. Now that's the character where an ending quote was actually expected. So if you look very closely here, you notice that each of these items has an opening, closing quote, this one closing, but the email does not have a closing quote. So it's assuming that this is the closing quote for email, and then this one has only one of those. So let's go back here to our code and go through that. So I missed this one, a quote right there. So that should solve the problem. Now, as you can see, the quotes are important here because they determine which of these is a string. Now you can imagine if somebody types in a name called, somebody says John's mom, for example, John, something like John's mom, John's mom. So this apostrophe here will be included in the name here, which will completely distort the whole query here. That's why this could be dangerous, even though it's not malicious, but it could be dangerous. So what I will do is I'll stop doing this because I've already seen the error. Then I'll just go and try to run my query this time. So instead of clicking sign up here, I'll just refresh so it can resend the previous data. And so we get an echo. So I should remove that. I forgot to remove that. But I think if we go now, we'll find a record. Okay, so there, a record was actually entered in there, which is pretty good. But let's try and enter another record here. So we're going to try John's mom, for example, and let's put an email there, and let's put another password. So let's try and sign up this time. So everything seems fine. So let's go back here and check. And you're going to notice that this time nothing happened. And that's because, let's go back and try to echo our query. I will bring back the echo query here, and then I'm going to refresh again like this so we can see our query. So you see, as a result, there's this problem here. There's John's, so which now means this becomes a string on its own, this John, and then the S to here becomes another item altogether. So which means there are more items here than there are here. Now this is a very benign example. Nothing bad would come of this because it just won't save in your database. However, there are people who are very clever who can actually use this to hack your system. They can simply put some code like, let's see, John's mom, and right after the S here, they'll put dash dash like this. So this means this is a comment. The rest of it becomes a comment, and then they can type in some other things in there. So they can design a query very well crafted to actually mess with your query and hack your database. So to avoid this, there's a very simple thing to do, is to just go here, wherever there's suspicious items, you just tell it to escape those characters. So what to escape a character means, let's come here and say, I'm going to type John like this, and then I'll say John's mom, the same one we had used. So now, as you can see, this text editor is getting confused here. It doesn't know where the sentence is starting and ending. The only way to stop this is to put double quotes outside like this, and then now it knows that this is a string, right? But the way it was, it couldn't tell where the string starts and ends. So according to it, this is one string, and this is a constant, and then another string is starting here. So to avoid this, you can escape this character. So to escape this character is simply after the character, you put a slash like this. Oh, the other one. Or is it? Oh, you actually escape it before. Wait a minute. How am I getting confused here? So you're supposed to escape the character. This is the escape. But I was expecting it to actually change. but it wasn't changing. But anyway, we can try to see how this comes into play by redoing the John's mom, and then I'm going to put an email address here. Let's go back here, 1 2 3 4, and then right here I will put an escape like that to tell it that this is a literal character right here. So let's see if that actually works. And then let me go back here to the browser, and now you see that it has actually managed to sign in and write John's mom correctly there, and that's because I escaped this character. So this is character escaping right there. I think this is part of the list. Where is that? Oh, there we go. Sanitizing and escaping for the database. Okay, now you can't expect the user to write something like that, so you do the escaping on your own. Now, to escape a character is very simple. You simply add the function add slashes like this. So once I say add slashes like that, it sanitizes the contents of this here. So now I can go back and write Jane's mom like so, and then let me put the email address and then sign up, and you notice that Jen's mom will go through. So we have 3 things there now. So this is how you escape a character. Now, a better way to do it is to simply create your own function. So let's go to functions here and go and say functions esc like escape, and then write maybe word or something like this, and then you just tell it to return an escaped version of this string. So it's just going to say return add slashes word like so. So all you're doing is escaping it here. Now the advantage of doing this is, as you are programming in here, you're going to be using add slashes a lot. Now imagine if add slashes for some reason doesn't become enough. You realize that you need to do more to escape your text. It will be very difficult to go back and change this to another function. So instead, all you have to do is write escape here to call that function, right? The one we created like that. And then in functions here, you can add several layers of validation here to make sure that the character, the word you're sending back, is actually clean after all that. Okay, so if you want to go really deep, you can put something here and say type. That way you can have an if statement checking what you want to validate this as. Do you want it to be a number? Then you can just say convert this to a number, whatever it is, because what I need is a number, and so on. But we won't go that deep. This is enough. Okay, so that's how you escape a character. Or the other thing is to use a preg match like this one. So you can escape it here, or before escaping it, you can try to use a preg match and then check if it's only letters and numbers. So this is very easy to do. So I'm going to copy this right here where I create the this part. So what I will do is, just to make sure that somebody is not trying to put malicious code, we're going to say we'll move username here, copy that and put it here because we're checking for the username. And now our regular expression will change to, okay, here I want to just trim it to make sure that all the spaces are removed from the beginning and from the end, like that. So that's how you remove those blank spaces there. Let me do this. And then now to check, we'll leave the beginning and end because it has to check from the beginning to the end. And then we just change what is in here. And in here we have A to Z, that's what we want to look for, and then capital A to capital Z. This is all we want. We don't want spaces in the name. We don't want, but if you want to include spaces, just leave a space there. That will be included. So we don't want spaces. We just want letters, capital letters, small letters, that's it. If you want to include numbers, you can say 0 to 9, like so. but this is enough. So we say, please enter a valid username, like this. Okay, so at this point we are sure, and then just to be sure, we can still get this username, because now username is inside this username. We can escape it after this. We can just say equals to, like that, username. So even if it passes this test, we can escape it as well. And then the password, we don't want to do a preg match, but you can do that if you want the password to contain maybe capital letters, at least a capital letter, at least a small letter, and so on and so forth. So you can use a preg match and design a pattern to suit that. Okay, so the password here escaped, and then we can finally save. And then once we save, let me remove that, we can send our user to the login page by saying header and location login.php, and then to do a clean break, we're going to tell it to die. All right, so this is how you sign up somebody and then send them to the login page to actually log in. So the next point is prepared statement, using prepared statement. Now, sometimes to avoid all this escaping right here, if you don't want to do all this escaping, you can simply use prepared statements. Now, what prepared statements are is that you can prepare a query in advance. So for example, this query here has variables there, right? Now, what you could do instead of doing this, you can have these variables only with their representatives. Like for example, let me come down here, let me duplicate this to create a new query. Let me mute that one. Okay, so here what we will do is remove all these variables right there, and then replace that with a full colon, like so. And then let me remove all the other semicolons there. I don't need them anymore. So you see what we've done here, we're not putting our variables, but we're putting a full colon and a representation of that variable here. So what this will do is it's going to make sure that it prepares this query and knows which part of the query is just the commands, the query itself. And then you're going to send the variables separately, then it's going to put those variables one by one here. So that way you can avoid that issue of John's mom. It won't be an issue even though you don't escape the character, because it will know that this whole thing that was given in here is an actual value and not part of the query. Okay, so let's try an example of prepared statements here. Okay, so let me go. Actually, before we even went to that, you see, as we are getting errors here, even if we get an error, this part still runs. So at this point, what you're supposed to do is put an if statement and say if error is empty, like this. This is the only time this part should run, if the error is empty. So sorry, I forgot about that when we were running it the first time, like this. Let me move that one in here. This will ensure that we only save when there are no errors. Okay, so that's great. So now let's try and do prepared statements. So to prepare a statement is rather simple. So what you do is you just say you create a statement. So we're going to call it a statement, short for statement. We're going to say connection prepare, like this. So we're going to prepare our query like this. Okay, so once we prepare our query, then the next thing is we'll use this statement now to run the query. So we're going to say statement execute, like so. Okay, just like that actually, and that should actually work. So prepare the query, then execute it. Very good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start with the original query, just there like that. Okay. Actually, what we will do is let's go straight to the other side. Let me run this one. Okay, so what we do now, how do we tell it what items to put here, what variables to put here? So we will create an array of those variables. So we may do that array at the top here and just say R, short for array, and then this is the important part, the value, whatever word, for example, URL address I used here, I should use the same memory in the memory location there. So I'll copy this one. In the array, it should be URL address like that. Then I will put the actual value there like so. So all I need to do is put all those values in here. Every single value, it must be, the array must be just as long as these values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the array should contain 5 items. So URL address, and then I will change this to date, and then we have username, and then we have password, like so. What have I forgotten? Email. So let's get the email. So the order doesn't really matter as long as it's in there. That's good enough. So once we create that, let me copy this array and put it on the execute there like so. So we prepare our query and then we simply execute it. Now, once you prepare a query, you can execute it multiple times without running the query again. You can just keep changing these values. So I can have another array here. I can replace the values in this array the second time here and then simply run execute because I've already prepared the query. So this way, prepared statements also speed up performance, but we're not going to be needing that here. We just want to see a simple example. And for us to actually be able to see this, I want to remove the preg match situation here so that I can put an invalid username, and I won't escape it as well here. So I'll close that. So no escaping, just that. So first of all, let's see if we can actually, and let me remove the redirect here for now. Let's just see if this will work at all. Okay, so let me come back here. So far we have 3 items here. So let me try and create a new Peter's father. Let's go to an email address, just random stuff, and sign up. So we have a problem here, undefined variable con on line 36. So definitely my bad because I used con instead of connection, right? So there we go. I don't know why I did that, but there we go. So let me resend this. Call to a member function execute on Boolean. So what this means is that a Boolean is a value of true or false. So we are calling a member function execute on a Boolean. So what this means is that this statement right here is equal to true or false. It's not an actual object here. So this is equal to either true or false, and that's what we are trying to run this execute on, which we're not supposed to do. So it seems prepared statements don't work directly here, which I actually thought they did. So anyway, moving on, let's create a different kind of connection so that we can try these prepared statements after that. So for that, we're going to go to our database here. So at this point, I'm going to create a new connection down here. I'm just going to duplicate this. This time I'll create a PDO connection. Now PDO is just like MySQLi. which creates a connection to the database. But PDO is multi-purpose because you can use it to connect different kinds of databases, not only MySQL database, but could be Postgres or something like that. So in order to do this is quite easy. Let's create a connection string. So I'm just going to call it string, so it's easier to see what's going on. So just say string, sorry, is equal to. Now the first thing we have to tell it is the type of connection. So because it's a multi-purpose connector, so MySQL like that, so that it knows it's MySQL. Full colon like that, and then we're going to give it the host. So we're going to say host is equal to localhost. So of course you can put these values there, but I just want you to see the way the string is constructed. So you can replace these later with db host. Just put the db host there, and then we put a semicolon, and then we're going to say db name like so is equal to, and then we'll put the db name, which in our case is what is our db name? Login underscore db. And then let's put do we put a semicolon here or not? I'm not really sure. Anyway, let's just put the semicolon at the end. So the semicolon here is segregating these two. So this string is enough. Let's copy that and put it here. We replace the host, right? So we already have the db name, so no need for the db name here. So string comma user comma password. Great. Now we replace MySQLi with PDO. So I think we'll put a new PDO like that. Okay, so let's cancel that just so we can see an error here if it happens. So let me refresh and let's try again. And as you can see now, everything worked out well. So I guess PDO is the way to go. So let me browse here, and as you can see, we have our record here, Peter's father, and so on. So as you can see, without escaping these characters, we actually managed to load Peter's father there. Let me try. We managed to load Peter's father there without escaping the characters. Let's go back to, so let me remove this. So from now on, we use prepared statements like so. Okay. And now to cement this, in case you are wondering how to do this, I can just get db host over here and replace that. So I will put the brackets like so, dot dot, and paste that there. So I'm connecting that exactly. So I will copy this and put it there like so. Word wrap keeps coming back. Okay, so yeah, I actually don't need this last part because it's an empty string. So like this, what was that supposed to be? db name. So there we go, db name. Okay, so that's a complete PDO connection right there. Okay, so if you want to use prepared statements, it's actually the best way to do it, because there you avoid all that issue of being hacked, just in case you forget something. So, and then you just prepare your connection to your query. You can make this into a smaller variable like con, just so it's easier to type instead of connection. And so you prepare and then you execute. In the execution, you put your array, which contains your values. So if the number of values is more than what you have given here, it will cause an error. So just be careful how many you give here and how many you give there. Okay, so at this point, we can put our header redirect so that we can take the user to the login page. Now we can create a login page from this. So here I can leave these errors because we need these guys. So I can also leave the escape there just in case. So these are all layers of security that we can add to make sure that we are getting the right data that we want to put inside our database. All right, so now let's just copy all this and create a sign up page because it's pretty much the same. So I'm going to go to public, create a new folder, a new file, sorry, and paste it there. And I'm going to call this one login.php. Yeah, so now we'll have our user login. So to log in, we don't need their username here. I can remove that username, change the title to login, and change that there as well to login. Okay, so email, password, required. And if any errors, they're going to be showing here. That's great. And let's change that as well to login. Goody. And then once we log in, we're supposed to be redirected to the index page. Okay, word wrap is coming back. So anyway, to change the settings, I keep fighting with this word wrap here because I don't need it. So to change your preferences in Sublime Text, just go to settings, maximize that, and then look for the setting that you want. Word wrap, that's the one I'm looking for right there. So you can go through all the settings here one by one to check what they do, and there's instructions there. So what I want is to get this. So whatever setting you want to change, just copy it and put it over here. So the comma should be at the previous one, like so. Yeah, so no comma at the end. This is a JSON, in case you haven't recognized it. So here, word wrap, it says I can have it either on true or false, right? So I want it on false permanently. So I'm going to put false there like that, and I'm going to save, Control S, and close this. Great. All right, so this is the login page now. Now, instead of inserting into users, this is the part that becomes a bit different. And so what we will get from our user is not the URL address. We don't care about that. We don't care about the date. We don't care about the username. All we want is the email and password, right? So let's come here and see that we completely remove things that are necessary. Date, URL address, and we want to match the email. Great. The username is unnecessary, so let's remove that as well. That too. And then password, so we escape the password, but you don't need to because you have prepared statements. So actually let's remove that. Great, so we just get the password as it is. Here it's good to warn the person to enter a valid email, so I would leave that there. Okay, so there we go, password, email, and then now the query itself. So here we will ask the question, we will tell it to find something in our database, select all from users. So where should it find it? So let's give it a where clause. We're going to say where the email is equal to :email. Yeah, because that's what we put it there. That's email. And so email. So we don't need to use that trick which we were using in previous times, where you just check for the email and then you check for the password later, because now we are using prepared statements, so the risk of hackers getting into our system is minimum. So we're going to say email and password is equal to :password, and we're going to say limit 1. We just want one result like that. Great. So that's how we do it, where email is email, password is password. Simple and straightforward. And then this is the email and password, which will be in that array, which we'll give it here. So statement execute. So here, after the connection, after the execution here, this is simply to check. So we're going to call it check is equal to. So we're just checking if this is true or false. If a result was returned, this will be true. So at this point, we will just put an if statement and say if check, which we're asking if it's true or false. So if it is true, let's move everything over, because everything now needs to be in there, like so. So if this is true, then we managed to find a record. So what we will do now is to get our data from that record. We're going to say data is equal to statement fetch. Oh, there's no a on fetch, so it's a fetch all, like so. Now, depending on what you want to use this for, you can put a constant in there like PDO, PDO, like that. And we're going to say fetch OBJ. So I like to use objects. If you want to use arrays, of course, you can do that. Fetch ASOC, like so. That's for you who wants to use an array. But I like to use objects, so I'm going to say OBJ, like that. Okay, so now data is going to contain the data that we've returned. Great, isn't it? And then now we can check if data is an array, still, because it's going to return an array of objects. So we will say if is array data, like so. Let's move these over once more. So if that is an array, then we can now assign, we can get the username or the URL address of this user into the session. So we're going to say session, like that, and then we're going to say URL address, whatever we want to say there, whatever we want to call it there. It's just a variable. So we're going to say data. Now remember, this is an array of objects. So what I will do is to tell it to just get the first item in the array. So I'll say 0, like that. So I will say data is equal to the first item in data. Now, if you want to retrieve all the results that came here, you're going to create a loop from here, so that instead of doing 0, you say for each data as maybe you can set it to raw or something, and then you can use that here. So in my case, I'm going to say URL address, like so, because that's the thing I want to get. So the session equal to that. Now, an important thing is that since we are using the session, we need to activate this session by saying session start. So without doing session start, we can't have a session. And the reason why we're using this session right here is because this is a global variable that is available on every page. As long as that page is using the same browser that you're using, then this session will be available. So it's a good variable to use. That way the user doesn't have to log in again on every page. We can simply know they're already logged in. So all we have to do is check for this and know that somebody is logged in. Okay, great. So now let's go to where is this? The auto load. Now, if you remember, auto load is always included at the top of each page. So auto load is always there. So let's go to auto load. At the very top here, we're going to say session start, like so. So if we don't have session start, we cannot use the session variable. Okay. So once we are done with this, we should have a session variable in our session. Okay, great. So to know that, we're just going to come here and echo it out and say echo session URL address, like so. Also, we can put the username, username, okay. So we'll have our username, the username of the user in the session, and their unique identifier, which is good. So here we can, I think username is more friendly to see. So let's echo the username. So let me come back here and just refresh. Now this is the sign up page. So if I sign up again, please enter a valid email. Okay, let's create a new user. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to say boom and 1 2 3 4, and let's go sign up. Unidentified index on line 43. So it doesn't know what this is because it doesn't exist, because we haven't logged in yet. Okay, so that's great. So we know it's actually working. However, we have a slight problem here. Now, if you notice here, if I browse here, I'm signing up with the same email, and then it's not telling me that there's another email existing like this. So we can go to the sign up page here and then check for that. So at this point, once we reach this point here, we have our email already set and everything. So we can simply read from the database right here and then generate an error if that email already exists. So we're going to say check if email exists. So at this point, we're just going to use exactly what we are using here. So a query statement and execute, just like that. So I think we can copy what's in the login. That's much better. This should come with, so let's copy all this up to here. Boom. Let's come to sign up, and right here we're going to paste it. Okay, so let's push it in just so we can see it. So here we're going to select all from users where the email, so we're just looking for the email, not the password. So where email is equal to email. So of course we're going to have to put this inside this array for the execution. So I will come here and say R. So it's a good idea to reset this before you use it. So just say it's equal to false, because you get into the habit of using this several times on one script. You find that you forget that you already added some stuff to it, and then you end up with more variables than you need here, and then it's going to cause an error. So it's just a good practice to do this first, and then you can give it some stuff in there like email, and then let me is equal to email, like this. Okay, so now this is added there to check here. Okay, so select from users, connection, query, and then run the query. So if everything went well, we're going to get to this point, and then if we do get to this point, if this data is an array, so this thing just tells you if the execution was successful. It doesn't tell you whether there's a result or not. So here we can check data is equal to that. Now if this data is an array, but just to be sure, we can also check if the array contains some data. So we can say and count, this is the number of items in this array, count data is greater than 0, like this. So this is important as well. So let me copy this and actually put it on here on the login as well, just to be sure. Okay, so sign up. So if this is true, then we know that somebody's already using this email, so we'll generate an error. So let me just copy this, come here and paste this error there. So we can just say someone is already using that email, and that's it. So let's give it a spin. So let me go back to my sign up page and just try to sign up again. Someone is already using that email. Okay, so great, everything is good. Now the thing is, we are not, in case there's an error, we're not retaining the values of our previous whatever we added here is removed, so we can quickly solve that problem. So to solve this issue, let's go to our input here and then put a value at the end here. So there's username, email, and password. So the password, we don't want to be retaining that, so let's just do it on these two. The person should always retype their password. So I'm just going to say value. I'm going to add a value there and say something like let's use username here. Oh, of course, this is supposed to be PHP. So since it's HTML, I'm going to say PHP. And actually, there's an easier way to do this, just to put an equal sign there, and then I will put my variable like username and then close those tags. So by simply saying this PHP tag with an equal sign and that username, I'm going to echo the username, but here I need to echo email. So username, email. Now the first time we run this, at this point, if you sign up, if you post something, we're going to get username and email variables. But if the person has not posted anything, we won't get these guys. So what we must do to avoid getting an error down there is right here where we're putting the error, we can just say that, and also username, same thing there. Okay. Alrighty then, like so. So we set them to empty strings, and that sorts out the problem. So let's try it again. Let me do this, resend, and then you see excuse me, so you see those values are back here. So if I, at least you can see someone is already using that email. I'll see, okay, it's this email, then I can decide to change it. Okay, great. So that is done. So now what I'm going to do is go to the table, go to operations, and I want to truncate the table. Let's delete everything in there so that I can start afresh. Okay, right, browse, and we have an empty record set. Great. So let me create my name there and put 1 2 3 4 and sign up. Okay, so now that I've signed up, I'm taken to the login page, which is awesome. So here I have signed up. Great. Then now I can put my email and my password. And now I've come to the home page. This is the home page. Now, in order to be sure that I have actually logged in, so let me go to the index page here. What did I do here? Oh, sorry, don't do that. Okay, so here we have to find a way now to check if inside the session the thing that I'm looking for exists, which is this one right here, either URL address there, like this one. Okay, so we want to check if that exists. So to do that, let's create a function to be doing that for us, because we can type it here, but we need to do this on every page that where you want the user to be signed up or to be logged in. You have to do that check on every single page. Now it becomes a problem if you're typing the data repeated over and over again. If you make a mistake on one page, you have to change the mistakes on multiple pages. So instead we will create a function, and we're going to say user underscore data is equal to check login, just like that. So on every page where you want to make sure that the user is logged in, just put this line there and it's going to check. Now, of course, we don't have this function, so we must create it, and that is easy peasy. So let's go to functions here and create one more function. So say function check login, like that. All right, so this was a mistake here. Great. So how do we check for if the user is logged in? Pretty simple. We just check if the session data exists. So if is set session. So let me just copy it from the login to avoid making mistakes. So let me go back to functions. There we go. Boom. I think wrong. There we go. If it's set, then we know we are actually logged in. So let me put return. Oh, actually, instead of returning something, we can just redirect the user. If we get to this point, then the person is not logged in. So what I will do is we'll say header location. So we're relocating this person to the login page, just like that, and then put die at the end for a clean break. But if we did find something, we're going to return the data of the user, because that's what we are getting there. Okay, so we're going to return the user of the currently logged in person. So to do that, let's go to login here, where we already did a read situation. So let's start from there. Let me copy all this. Okay, this one matches with that one, so I'm going to copy all this up to there. That's how we can read from the database. Okay, now the thing is, that's inside a function, right? That is inside a function. So we will need a way to get the connection from there. Wait a minute. So this is inside the function. So we will not have, let me paste that there inside. So we don't have the connection in here because this is inside a function. Or maybe we do have the connection. Wait a minute. Function check login. If it's set, okay. So even though we do, it's not a good idea to use global variables in functions to make them more portable, so that in case somebody asks me for this function, I want a function that checks if I'm logged in, I can simply copy this and give the person without worrying about missing variables. So let's put connection right there. And then what we will do when we go to the index page, we will put connection here. So we can use this to send it over there. Okay, so you put this on every page you want the user to be logged in, to make sure the user is logged in. So let's go back to functions here and let's see what we're actually doing here. So the first thing we're doing is we're getting the URL address. So let me copy this and I'm going to put it here. And then I'll copy the name and put it there and remove the email, because all we have right now is the URL address. So once this is equal to whatever is in there, and now here we're just going to check for URL address instead of email. So say URL address. Okay, we don't need to check for the password, just to know if the user is the one. So just add URL address is equal to URL address. So if we reach this point, then the person is actually logged in. So we can remove all this here, except for the data part here. And at this point, we're just going to say return, like so. Return the first entry. Great. Okay, so that's good there. Now, if you were using, if you are fetching a sock here, which is an array, you would still do this exactly the same. The only difference comes in when reading the data. Like for example, at the login here, instead of using the arrow, you would use the thing like this. That's how you deal with arrays. Okay, but I'm using objects, so it's like this. So now at the heading there at the index page, I can actually put something here and say, let me put a div just to separate it, and say hi, and then PHP tags equals, and then I can say session username. Okay, so that's echoing what's inside the session. So let me refresh and you see, hi, I've logged in as that person, right? So let's make a login page, so that logout page, sorry, so that we know that we can actually log out and not be allowed if we are logged in. So in public, new file, save this as logout.php. Great. Now to log out is very simple, because as you can see in functions, we are only checking to see if this actually is set. That's it. Once we check if this is set, we try to find the user. If we find the user in the database, then we are good to go. So now in the logout, all we have to do is check, is it set, and then unset it. So the reason we are checking if it's set is because if you try to unset something that isn't set, you get an error. So I'll say unset. Boom, that's it. So I can unset both. So it's better to check one at a time, because remember we used username is there as well. So that's it. This is the logout page. So let's go on index page and create what is this here? I can actually make a div here and say this is the header ID. That's usually better when you can just include the header page like so. Okay, so at the end we can have this one. Let me put a style here and just say float right, and then I want this to just be logout. Okay, and then I want to, this is like this, I want to put an a tag, a link to the logout page, and that's it. Logout.php. Oops, it's outside, so bam, there we go. So let's refresh that, and you see the logout page is there. So if I actually log out, oh wait a minute, log out here. After we log out, let it take you to the you can choose which page you want to take the user here. So I'll just tell them to go to the index.php page, which they will later be redirected back to the login page. So refresh, hi, logout. Oops, what's going on? Oh, it's bringing me back here. Okay, so the reason it's not working here, that's because we forgot one important thing, and that is we have to require the autoload at the top here, because the autoload contains the session file. So without a start session, you cannot access the session. So it cannot be up, it won't be set, and it cannot be unset. So let's go to the header and we remove that. Copy that, go to logout.php and add it here. Okay, so that should work now. So let's log out. Boom, we're in the login page. Okay, so let me try and access the index page here without logging in. So index.php, and you see I'm taken to the logout page. Very nice, unless I log in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we go. Now I am on the main page and it actually knows my name. Awesome. So this is what you do. You can make multiple pages just like this, and just make sure that at the very top, for every page that you want to be private, only for logged in people, you use this. These two should be there at the top. And then here the problem is if let's say for example the index page is not restricted, which means this session variable will be empty if we open the page, because there are those pages which can be accessed by both those who are logged in and those who are not logged in. So you must put an if statement to make sure that this doesn't happen. So a way to do this is just to go up here and just say username is equal to empty. All right, and then you say if is set, we can just copy from here. Great. So if the session is set, then we will assign a username to the session name. That way username is always present regardless whether we are logged in or not, like that. So we have username there, and then here we can come and instead of just saying hi, what we could do is put an if statement. Okay, so there's that. So now I don't want this whole section to show if I'm not logged in. So what I will do is just use some PHP tags and say PHP like this, and I'm going to say if username, because I know it's always there, is not empty, right? Then let me put a full colon there and close that. So this is one way of doing it. So let me put that to make sure it's a variable like this. And then I'll copy this, put it here, and simply say end if. So I'll say end if like so. I don't know whether I should put full colon or semicolon. I'm not sure here. I think it's semicolon. Okay, so if this will only show if this is true. So let me try this by let me remove this user data, check login, so it doesn't have to check for the login here. So if I refresh, nothing will change, but let me log out, then go to the home page. So you see now this is the home page, but the hi section isn't showing as because we've put it inside an if statement over here. So this is kind of like templating where you don't want to put this inside an echo statement, but you can still use PHP like this together with HTML. Okay, so this is great. Let's look at our list here. So there's vague error messages and then disable messages, error messages there. So the vague error messages I'm saying here is, for example, give the user as little information as possible, right? So you want to give the user as little information as possible. So for example, when you are logging in here, instead of telling you to, okay, valid email is a valid thing. Now, if we're actually not telling the person anything here. So let me come here. Wait a minute. So if something was posted, this will move from here to there. So if we do get to this point, then it means our email was wrong or our password was wrong. So let's put that inside an error message like this. Let me copy this. So this is on login.php. At the end here, let's put an error. So as long as we have something was posted, but we were not redirected, it means we will get here. And so it means we have a wrong email or password. So now, instead of you figuring out which of the two is wrong, either the email or the password, and telling the user, that's way too much information, because a hacker could be there just testing out all kinds of emails just to make sure that at least one of them will have a hit, because he's going to see that every email he tries, it says wrong email, and then finally he tries a correct one, and then it's going to say wrong password. So now he's going to know that at least I have a correct email. Now I just need to find the password. So in a situation like this, you're supposed to give as little information as possible. So instead you just say wrong email or password. This way the person doesn't know which of the two is wrong. This is this is what we call security through obscurity. You don't give out too much info. So every time you're writing error messages, just know that you don't have to be very specific as to the error that's happening if it's a security risk. Okay, so this one takes out this vague error messages, and then there's disable error messages. So every time you, when you're developing the website on your local host, it's very important to see error messages here. But once you're online, error messages are a problem because somebody could try and break your system just to see the error messages, and then they can get information from there on how to hack your system. So make sure that error reporting is disabled on all your when you are on the production side. After the development is done, when you're actually in running online, don't show error messages. Now, to make sure of that, you just go to a file that you know will always be on every page. For example, this autoload that has session start, this we know will be on all the important pages. So what we can do here is we can just say ini set underscore set like this, so that we can set it explicitly here and say display underscore errors, and then we put a comma and put it to 0. Now if you want errors to show while you're developing, you put this at 1 like this, then errors will show because that's important. But if I put it at 0, so let's test this out. What I will do is just intentionally cause an error. So let me go to the login page. Where is this logout? Let's go to the login page here. Okay, great. So right here, I want to do something weird. So login page, what I will do, for example, I just move that D out of there so that that is not found. And right there, I'll say unidentified request method. Okay, great. So this is expected. But if we go to the autoload here and I put it at 0, I tell it don't show error messages, then I can refresh and I won't see anything. Okay, so this is one of the security features you need to think about. So let me undo what I did here. Great. All right, so what's remaining now is these two. So let's start with HTML escaping, and then we can do the tokens right here. So HTML escaping is very simple. So if somebody is, let's say I have logged in here, right? Let me log in. Oh, let me use my email. 1 2 3 4. Okay, so we are on the home page right here. Now, as you can see, I'm echoing out what's inside my database. Now, it's very important to know that even data in your database is actually unsafe because it might have passed the litmus test when logging in, but it doesn't mean it's safe. Because, for example, you might be asking your users to write their location, like the address, which is quite long, and they might, instead of writing an actual address, they might put in some code instead. So let me give you an example of that one right here. So let's just add an extra column here. I'll add one more column. I'll call this one address. Oh, let's just say location, just to be more specific. Variable character. I will put maybe 1000 characters can go in here and hit save. Okay, this is great. Now, imagine if for some reason you didn't program your inputs properly. And so let's go here to the browse section. And I want to put something in location here. So I will edit this row. Oh, actually I have to click here. Great. So in location, instead of adding my address, I decided to add a JavaScript, a script instead. So I will say something like alert hacked, right? Just to let you know that I hacked you. Script. So the point here to remember is that somebody can craft in a script instead of writing the location, just so they can hack into your system. So it might not look like this, it might be something more clever, but this is the basis of how things are done. So let me save that. So it can save quite fine inside here. You see it escaped the characters on its own like that, to make sure that it can load in that. Okay, that's great. But Now this is a problem. If we come here to our index page, let's say somebody is logged in, and so we now want to use the user data right there. Okay, so we want to get the user data there and echo it here because we want to show maybe this is somebody's profile. So let me put a break tag here. So I'm going to say user data location, like so. I'm going to echo this out. So I'm simply displaying the user's data here. So, but what happens is this, watch. Oops. Something is weird here, and that's because I don't have my PHP tags. So I don't know how I forgot that. So I'm going to use this shorthand instead. Like so. Great. So echo that out. And now what you see is instead of echoing the data, there's this thing that comes here and says hacked. Now this can be very dangerous because this is running some JavaScript which can send information to the hacker's website on your own system. It can also read from your database because now it's part of your system. It can also show a banner that your users may click and go to a malicious website. So much can be done with this kind of thing. So you must try by all means to avoid being hacked this way. So to avoid that is very, very simple, just by getting the variable and telling it to display as HTML entities. So it's going to be like this. HTML entities or HTML special chars. So I like using special chars. I don't remember the actual difference here, but I like using special chars. So let me do this and that. So now I've put this inside this HTML special chars. So what I'm telling it is that what is in here is not executable code, but HTML. So the browser will do everything it can to escape all the characters that are in here to make sure that they don't run as HTML, as a script rather. So as you can see now, even though it's a script, I've managed to echo it out without a problem. So this is how you do HTML escaping. So let's now go to this token thing, cross-site request forgery. Now this attack is not as, I don't know if it's as common as it used to be, but it still exists. So what this means is that somebody with a different website can use your own website or a website you are on to get to send the wrong request. So for example, I can let's say you are browsing your you're using your browser and you are logged in into one website. So once you are logged in into a website, let's say it's your bank. So you are logged into your bank. And once you log in, as you have seen here, what we are doing is we are simply creating a session variable when somebody logs in. So the bank obviously has a more advanced system than this, but it's pretty much this. So all the important variables are stored in the session. So every time you access the bank website from your browser, it will assume that it is you because you're already logged in. Now a problem comes in when your bank tab is open and then you access a hacker's website for some reason, somebody with malicious intent. So once you're on that new website like here, so this website, what it could do is it could create a form automatically using JavaScript and then send that form to your bank. Okay, now that form could be the form that you use when you want to withdraw money to a specific account, right? And then it's going to fill in all the details in there that are required. And because you're already logged in, the bank is going to assume this is you that is actually sending this request using a legitimate form from the bank, right? So then it's going to withdraw all that money into the hacker's account, and then you'll be surprised why your bank account is now empty. So to avoid doing something like this is to create what we call a session token here, which is that one. So this is very simple. It's just a random string. For example, here on the login. So you use that random string on all the forms on your website. Every single form should have that field. So to do that, so you may be wondering, how does that help? Well, it helps because if for every form that I send also a random generated value, just like that URL address. It means inside the session, I'm going to put that same value, and then I'll be waiting for a form which contains that very specific value. Now, if, for example, a cross-site hacker is trying to go into my bank, since I haven't opened that the form where I want to withdraw my money, it means there's no token inside my session at that time. And even if there's a token there, the hacker would not know what that token is. So even if they send a form to the bank is just going to ignore that form because it will know that there is no such, because it's going to have either the wrong token or it's not going to have a token at all. So this is how you stop that kind of thing. So let's do this with an example so that you can see this. So let me go to the login part here, and at this point I'm just going to add an input field here which is hidden. So this type is going to be hidden, so it doesn't matter what this is, so as long as it's hidden, and then it's got a name. So the name, we're just going to call it token. You can call it anything you want. And then let's put a value here, like so. Okay, so we'll try to log in with a token. So the easy way to do this is, while you are here, you generate a token. So let's generate that token real quick. We can copy this code from the URL address section there. So let me go to the login page, and I'm just going to say token is equal to, like this, and I will do that. So token is equal to, we're going to generate a random number here, whatever this is. So random number generated. So once we generate that, we set it to the session. So we're going to say session so that we can remember it. Session token is equal to token, or to, yeah, actually this is fine here. We could simply put this directly here to avoid going round and round. So session token is equal to that. So every time we refresh this page, we generate a new token, which is good. So now this token right here, actually I should have let that token be at the top there. So we know there's always a token here in the session. So I'll copy this and come down to my value over here, and I'm going to echo it with my PHP like that, using the shorthand form. So session token there. So let me come down here and let's log out and go to the login page. Then I'm going to inspect this element here. And once I go to the form, where is the form? There we go. So you will see that there's a hidden thing with a token, and there is the token right there. So you can give it a length of your choice. So the token is there. If I refresh the page, you see that the token has changed. Okay, great. Now the thing is, since every time we are setting a new token, all we need to do now at the very top here, before we set a new token, we have to make sure that the token is legit that we have. So let me remove this just so I can put it down here instead. So put it somewhere where it will always run, right? Create a token every time. And then what we will do now is go to the top here and copy that. So if the server has posted something, right? Great, but then we can do something else and say, and the session token right now, the token of the session is equal to whatever is in the token for the post at that time. So like this, boom, and then we say token. Okay, so if the token in the session is equal to the token that was posted, then we continue. We know that everything is fine. Otherwise, we simply ignore it. But then there are times when maybe we haven't set this token yet, so it's always a good idea to check if it is set. So we can just say here, and is set, paste that, and then we put another and. So if the session token is set and the session token is equal to that, so if either it's set and it's equal to that, then we pass through here. Otherwise, we're going to ignore this. So let me try this right now. What I will do is remove this token for now. So I'm going to comment this out, HTML comment, or simply just delete the whole thing. Right, so no token right there. So I'm just going to refresh the page here, and then I'll try to log in. So everything is normal, my login is great, but then I get this error, unidentified index token on line 6. So this is because I didn't check if it is set. Okay, so I should have checked if this is set, right? So what I will do is, let me undo this part here so that I can keep it in memory. So I can actually check for both here, so no big deal. So I'll just do this, duplicate that. So the question is, it's a request, it's a post request, and the token session is set in session and also inside post, just so we don't get these errors like so. Okay, and then I come down here and remove the hidden field. So now let's refresh, and let me try again. So correct credentials, but then nothing happens. So here we don't even show an error message, because we know if somebody doesn't have a token, then they're not worth giving an error message at all, because they're trying something weird, because normally they should have a token, right? So we just don't give them anything here. But if now I reverse this and refresh the page, let me refresh the page, send that, and then 1 2 3 4, and now I am logged in. So this is how you prevent cross-site request forgery. So you do this on all your forms to make sure that nobody will hack you, or nobody will take advantage of your users when they are running your website. All right, so I hope so far you've learned something new about security from these folder structures, all these things here: sanitizing, prepared statements, be vague with your error messages. So create a proper folder structure, do double validation, make sure you are using whitelisting instead of blacklisting. You don't have to use regular expressions, but they are pretty cool. And then you sanitize or escape your inputs for the DB, use prepared statements, be very vague with your messages, disable all error messages when you're in production or when you're online, use tokens, and escape your HTML. You will be at least having basic security for your website. All right, so I will see you in a later tutorial when we learn something else. See you then.